I did it, guys. I've become the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I have some thoughts. It's always a bit worrying when the creator of a series leaves, especially when their last game was something as good as Lost Judgement, a game that I'd argue is one of RGG's best. Seeing that news back in 2021 made me a bit worried for the next mainline game. Ishin and Gaiden, there's no physical in North America, being solid games, eased my worries, especially after Gaiden's ending, man. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous for Infinite Wealth. At worst, this is one of the best games in the series. At best, it is the best game in the series. The only thing holding it back from convincingly taking that title is some issues I have with it. Those issues are spoilers, so I'm going to gush about this fantastic game first. Starting off with how it improves on the previous game. For clarity, I will be calling this game Yakuza 7 throughout the entire video. 7's combat was fun, but very simple. So simple that when the creator said that it shifted genres under a year before it came out, everybody believed it. By the way, that's not true. I believe the current head of the series said that wasn't true. This game's combat feels way more fleshed out. You can now control your party members' movement in combat. Thank God. That was always my biggest issue with 7's combat. Sometimes one guy would slightly be out of your AoE, so you have to wait for your character to decide to wander to the left. But oops, they went right, and now all the enemies have stopped grouping up. There were so many times where I wished I had control over their movement. And now you finally do, making environmental attacks something you can plan for. The ability to move the party led this game's combat down a path that made it feel like a tactics game at times, which I loved. I found myself setting up guys in a way to perform combo attacks, trying to pull off some AoE moves, or setting up for a solid special. I think the best example of this is a move that Ichiban has where he charges towards a selected enemy. He runs through anybody in his way. The further he runs, the stronger the attack gets, and he does a big, devastating hit on the selected enemy. It was very satisfying setting up a straight line of enemies while getting Ichi as far away from the guy at the end of the line as possible. And there's stuff like that all over this game's combat system. It takes the, okay, this is pretty neat combat from 7 and turns it into, okay, this is pretty smart now. The new classes show how much they've improved on the combat too. There's a lot of synergy between them, especially with the Kabi class. Early on, it gets a move that lowers resistance to electrical attacks, and Ichi's main element is electric, so they play super well together. While I played 7, I kind of left everyone on their base classes, resisting the call to make everybody a breaker, but I couldn't resist it here because they were all so diverse and useful, and I'm so happy they brought back the revelations for the class changes. Other improvements include, I believe it's the first game in the series where you can fast travel by selecting points on the minimap instead of using the taxi app on your phone. There's a bunch of places around where you can change your class. If enemies are a low enough level from you, you can kill them instantly for less experience. And because I was doing everything in this game, I never really felt that EXP loss. There are two types of summons now. Some do one big thing, and others hang around for a few turns. It's a great change to how they worked in 7. One of the most fun additions to the combat is Kiryu's class in general. He can swap between his 3 styles from 0, all of which have different utilities. That added so much depth to him. But the best part of his kit is when he says screw the genre and he uses the dragon style to beat people up like the old games. This was a blast to use and really illustrates the power that the Dragon of Dojima has, where the genre itself cannot contain him. If this is how much they improved on 7's combat, Like a Dragon 9 is about to have the most insane combat ever. Ichiban in this game is somehow better here than he was in 7. Whenever people say he's him or you're not him, I just want you to know the him they're talking about is Ichiban. He is just the best dude ever. Still a bit of an idiot at times. Maybe don't propose on the first date, Ichi. That sounds like a good idea. He is the definition of kill him with kindness. And throughout the game, in both the side quest and the main story, he is so forgiving and willing to help. Not because he's naive, but because he believes everybody deserves a shot at redemption. He knows what it's like to be at rock bottom, but he didn't let the darkness swallow him back then. And now that he made it out, he's going to do his best to help people find the light too. I loved seeing what he learned from the previous game put into practice here. You can see how Masato's death affected him, how someone's life being cut short before they could atone, before they could climb out of rock bottom, drives him during this game. Ichiban, both in real life and in this game, is in the shadow of a legend, and in every opportunity he gets to stand out and become his own legend, he takes it. He might be my favorite video game character of all time, but he's not the only great character in this game. The supporting cast around him is also very solid. The returning party members mostly grow through side content. That's my only issue with them though. They're more entertaining here. Namba is my boy. I think one thing this series does way better than most RPGs is how it fleshes out its cast. Because everybody in this game is old by JRPG standards, I'm pretty sure Chitose, at 26, is the youngest by a decade. When you listen to the characters talk in their skits around town or their drink links, you can tell they lived a life. And the bingo board was a great addition to give background on everybody's hobbies. And a lot of the situations they talk about are just awkward things that you'll run into as an adult, like saying nothing on a Zoom call outside of sneezing really loud one time. Now combine that with some serious adult themes like Tomi's backstory, which is one of the most heartbreaking things in this entire series. And yeah, these characters feel real. It's nice seeing a cast in this genre act like they have some years on them. And I enjoyed them so much that I would love it if another Sega RPG series was set in university. Like seriously, if you just set Persona 6 in someone's last year of university, you can have a very mature cast at a very important time in their life that can still be a coming of age story. But this isn't my TED Talk about how Persona would be better off in university. This is a review about Sega's best RPG. I don't know how big RGG Studios is, but I find the quality and the quantity of the content in this game insane. Since Yakuza 7, they released Lost Judgement, Like a Dragon Ishin, and Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. The latter two, released within a year of Infinite Wealth's release too. I don't know how they did that. I'm assuming they have like 8 teams. The two major minigames this time around are a goddamn Pokemon arc and Animal Crossing? When the game teased the Pokemon minigame, I was losing my mind. All the battles are triple battles, and everyone hits all enemies that they can reach. It's silly, not the most in-depth, but it's fun. Playing it, you can tell that the devs have a love for Pokemon. Like, the questline will do gags straight out of the Pokemon anime. As a Pokemon fan, it was amazing. And the fact that the story revolves around greed ruining the Sojimon League is a conversation that the internet is not ready to have. Delco Island was something I wasn't expecting to see at all. Even when the game gave it to me, the weight of what I just unlocked took a bit to settle in. And then that's all I did for the next 15 hours of playtime. During the week that I unlocked it, I made no progress in the plot. I couldn't stop playing it. While it does have some of the issues I have with Animal Crossing, where I wish it had minigames attached to the items, it's attached to a full-ass JRPG, so I do not care. Between these two minigames alone, I was astonished with how much content they put into this game. And there was still others. Crazy Eats was the only one I knew about before playing the game, and it was so fun. Such a great love letter to Crazy Taxi, man. The horny minigame this time around is Mismatch, a dating sim. I got catfished by a chicken. That was fun. The Friend app was a neat way to get me to care about NPCs. I don't know, I kind of liked running by an NPC I'm buddies with and they say hi to Ichi. Although I do think the series needs a graphical upgrade because some of the NPCs looked rough. The side quests here are my favorite in the series. I think they're the funniest and most out-of-pocket stuff they've ever pulled. Hawaii was a great place to explore. So much so that I kind of want them to keep traveling the world. Like a Dragon's map design is so perfect, I want to see how they recreate other cities. The story though, there's a reason why I neglected talking about it. On one hand, I believe the emotional journey that it sets its characters on are better than previous games. But on the other hand, the actual story itself is a step down from 7 and the Judgments. Ichi going down this rabbit hole trying to find his thought-to-be-dead mother leads to some great moments. But I wish it was longer. It really needed a few more chapters to cook. And there were some scenes that I wish the game had. Scenes that they just didn't do for seemingly no reason. Which is crazy because I had 100+ hours of playtime. And I'm sitting here saying, yeah, this game could have used 10 to 20 more hours. I don't know, man. There's just stuff they needed to flesh out more. Like, it feels like there's going to be a DLC story. So far, I've only talked about the first half of the game. Infinite Wealth is really divided between 2 parts. So if you haven't gotten past chapter 7, skip to 1239. Thank you. You're welcome. To avoid spoilers. As I only mentioned once, for a reason, Kiryu is a party member in this game. He has cancer. He only has half a year to live. And in the midpoint of the game, he has to go back to Japan because of his illness. Namba, the best JRPG party member in history, don't at me, was formerly a nurse and he goes back to Japan with him. And after Kiryu gets out of the hospital, Namba recommends that he makes a bucket list, which is what Kiryu's side content revolves around. Him settling some loose ends with characters from previous games, reminiscing about his life. It's a perspective I've never seen in a video game before. Cyberpunk is the only game I've played where basically throughout the entirety of it, the character has a terminal illness. But here, it's a character who's lived a way longer life than V. So here, at the end of it, he reflects on the time he had. A lot of characters that kind of vanish from the series are given some closure, which is nice to see, because it's rare to get closure with that former boss you were close with, that one partner you had you could have ended up with if the writers didn't decide to ship her off to America. I'm still mad about that Yakuza 3. Or getting confirmation that your kids will be okay when you're gone. At its worst, Kiryu's section is extremely emotional. At its best, it's incredibly depressing. And it makes me think about when we inevitably get to the end of Ichi's journey in this series, who will show up again late in his life? Who will be the equivalent to Date that will give him closure on characters that vanished? And it's weird because we kind of see that here for Ichi. One fun parallel between the two sides of this game is Ichi is constantly running into characters from 7 who just so happen to be in Hawaii. It's kind of wild how many people he knows who just so happen to be on vacation or got transferred here. So both protagonists are reflecting on previous interactions and are getting closure. Kind of like that's a theme of this game or something. And I feel like no game tackles it like this one does. Like, it gets you thinking, if you had half a year to live, what would you do? What would you think about when you walk by places with the context that it might be the last time you ever walk past here? And that's what Kiryu does in this game. The areas that make him feel nostalgic turn this game into sad boy hours. I do wish there was more to do in Japan than the bucket list. Like, Can Quest returns, but there's no major mini games here. I wish they brought back Pocket Circuit or Dragon Kart, especially because in previous games, and even with Ichiban in this game, when you do those weird mini games, you always like, ha, there's such a goofy guy. But in this game, when Kiryu does the goofy stuff, I'm like, ha, he's such a goofy guy. He's going to be dead in half a year. So what I'm saying here is give me more content for my 100+ hour game, please. I don't know, give me something to make these sections less depressing, because the only one here is the Underground, and that's also in Hawaii. I didn't talk about that. The Underground is really fun, by the way. It's a fun procedurally generated dungeon that has some good rewards in it. I think one of the smartest things that this game does is parallel what Ichi's mom is doing with how Kiryu met Haruka. Given where he is in this series, it's a fantastic motivator for him. Needless to say, Kiryu's sections are incredibly depressing, which is wild because it is the funniest video game I've ever played. The series has always been really funny, but I don't think it's ever hit as much as this game does. A lot of games are very kinda hit or miss with their jokes, but this game is all killer, no filler, excluding the end of the romances. I really didn't like those. For a solid 95 to 100 hours in this game, I found it so crazy that they stuffed so much quality content into this game while dropping 2 other games within a year. But sadly, by the end of the story, I started to notice that if it had more time and budget allocated to it, it could have fleshed out some things more. I would have been alright if Ishin released later, so the resources could have been used here. If you guys watched my GOTY video, you should know that going into this game, I had a feeling it was going to be an uphill battle for it to become my GOTY. While playing this game, for the longest time, I could not see a path to Rebirth being better than this. Outside of Rebirth being the greatest game ever made. That's how good Infinite Wealth is. It's just fantastic. But after beating Infinite Wealth and seeing those cracks, there's an opening. Along with some of the game's DLC so clearly being content that was removed from the game and packaged as DLC. Also, why does taking pictures in the game save them to my PlayStation's hard drive? There's a side quest centered around taking photos, and now I just have so many screenshots for no reason on my console. All that being said, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is the best turn-based JRPG I've ever played. It is a nearly perfect game, and it is so close to that perfection. It's right there, but it stumbles a bit at the end, made all the more visible by the quality of the rest of the game. And an ending I wasn't the biggest fan of. It may not be a 10 out of 10, but it's the closest I am willing to give a game. It's an incredibly solid 9.75 out of 10. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's so good that if you're someone who doesn't want to do the required reading for this game, I would tell you to skip right to it. Yeah, you might not experience some of the emotions that the game wants you to experience. This game is just so fucking good that if you haven't played the rest of the series, just watch a catch-up video and play it. Yes, you should play the other ones to fully understand Ichi and Kiryu, but that is such a huge commitment, you can just skip to this one. Also, I do want to make a video about this game's ending. It's not going to be a full breakdown like I did with Sevens, it's probably going to be more of a discussion video. Do you agree? Think I'm an idiot? Comment down below. Dislike the video if this game also made you cry, and subscribe for more content. Follow me on other platforms if you want. Take care, guys.